I'm Janis Putelis with MeatEater, and I'm going to show you how to take off the backstrap or loin from a whitetail deer. I like to start at the upper end of the backstrap where it kind of meets the neck roast here. And basically, you're just going to work your way down the spine and down the ribs first with a cut to sort of loosen the edges, I guess, of the backstrap. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to insert it next to the spine and go all the way down to where the ribs meet the spine, and then run my blade all the way down to where it meets the pelvis back here. On this side here, you can see here where my fingers are, these are all ribs. There's just a little bit of rib meat here. That's backstrap. So that line there, you can almost see there's a line here that's shown of silver skin that kind of follows all that, the edge of the backstrap all the way back down here to the pelvic bone. You follow that all the way down through too. If you want, you can remove this extra trim meat that's sitting on top here that's full of silver skin and put that into your stew meat pile. Once you've got that done, grab the end of the backstrap and lift it up gently, and then start using your knife and basically trace along those ribs and just cut slowly, 1 to 2 inches at a time. And as you're doing that and more backstrap is lifting off of the carcass, just keep working your knife in there and peeling it backwards as you get towards the rear of the animal. Once you get towards the back end, the backstrap sort of changes shapes. It actually does it 3 times. At the upper end here, the backstrap is sort of, it almost is kind of sinewy and stringy and kind of skinny, but still round. The middle section of the backstrap is where you have your prime cuts. It's round to oval shaped, no sinew within the meat. As it gets towards the back end, it flattens out a little bit. So it's important to be careful here because you have what's called your short ribs, and that backstrap comes right to the edge of the short ribs. So you want to be careful you're not whacking off, chunks of meat as you're working through here. So remember that meat comes right to the edge of those short ribs and it's thinner. So again, working your knife along the ribs until you get to the pelvic bone. Here's another spot where you need to be a little extra careful because the pelvic bone, if you're looking at it from this angle, is angled this way towards the front end of the animal. So if you just get to that pelvic bone and then just come straight down, you're going to lose a nice little chunk of meat that's going to be left back in there. Now, it's not the end of the world. You can always carve it out and throw it into your grind pile. But if you're careful, again, just trace that pelvic bone, trace those ribs, and all that meat will be intact with the backstrap, and you're just going to get more backstrap. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to remove this extra sort of layer of meat that's on top of the backstrap. There's not much here. I'm more doing this for aesthetics and just so you guys can see the lines here better of what I'm working with. This hole here is where Seth, the flip-flop flesher, hit this animal. It might be the exit. He said it was above her, which would make sense if it came out here. And it looks like we're gonna have a little damage to the backstrap, but not too bad. So now you can feel the spine running here. And again, you can feel the ribs here. And the backstrap's kind of sitting between the two. So I'm going to take my knife and go right in along the spine. And basically, when I go in here a couple inches, I will feel these ribs with the tip of my knife. And then I'll just run it all the way up. Now, bone will dull a knife pretty good. So once you feel the ribs there, you don't need to press too hard. Let the knife do the work against the meat. I can feel the ribs in there, so now I'm just kind of tracing that spine. I would normally be approaching this backstrap from this side of the animal. I'm having to lean over the whole carcass and the ribs to get to this. But if I was standing on this side or we had it flipped, you guys wouldn't be able to see too much. So it's a little bit awkward for me. But with long arms, I'm able to reach over and still get to what I need to get to. So I've made my incision along the back strap, along the spine here. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. You can see there's a nice white line that runs right here at the top of the ribs, but not into the back strap. I'm just going to make that cut there, and that sort of loosens up the back strap now from the ribs. As far as where to make your cut here for the beginning of the back strap, where it meets the neck, there's probably a 2 or 3 inch zone here where it really doesn't matter too much where you make that incision down. Reason being is that you'll see here, the back strap at this point has a lot of connective tissue. There's some sinew in there. You're probably not going to end up making a steak or including this in the roast of the back strap anyways. So don't worry about it too much. You're probably going to end up trimming a couple 3 inches off here and again putting this into your stew pile. So now that I have a little tail to grab onto here, I'm just going to use my knife, and basically all that should be left is the back strap that's hanging on to the little rib shelf that's up here. The ribs kind of make a 90-degree turn here as they go towards the spine. So that's really all that's left to take off. Now, to keep your knife from dulling, the ribs are angled towards the back. So if you work with the bone with your blade, you're not going to be fighting the bone as much and dulling your knife. So start from the spine and work to the back. Start from the spine, work back. Okay, you can see here I'm encountering where the shot went through. Got some bone in there. Some busted rib. Which is all right. I'll clean that up once I get all the meat off of the carcass here. All right, so at this point, I've entered where this is the last major rib right here. Okay, but there's still ribs here, the short ribs, right? The back strap gets real skinny here, and it becomes a little bit fatter. So what I like to do is come right on top of the tips of those short ribs. I can feel them with my fingers, with my thumb, come right on top of them. And again, think about lightly tracing the bone with your knife tip. Okay, so the back strap is almost all the way off. Now it's just being connected here. It's basically connected to where you have your rear quarter, your ham, and there's the pelvic bone, and the back strap's kind of tucked in there. This is where a nice, long-bladed, flexible knife comes in handy. So you can get in there and again, trace the bone and make sure you're not leaving any meat behind on the bone here. Today, I'm using the Meat Crafter by Benchmade, which is made in collaboration with Stephen Ranella and a lot of the other folks here at MeatEater. And it should be the best knife for something like this. It's got just enough flex in there where you can really work around the bones. My goal always is to really not leave too many mouthfuls of meat stuck on the carcass, right? I want it to be, almost clean to the bone, right? If this carcass was laying out in the field and a coyote rolled up on it, he'd be a little disappointed that I didn't leave him more. So you can feel the pelvic bone here. And again, I'm just going to run that knife right alongside it, and the pelvic bone is angled towards the back, so the back strap, the tip of it is tucked in there. So again, you can see the angle of the knife here, how steep it is. I'm going to go towards the back, loosen it, and then again, I can come in along the short ribs. And get that one little morsel out of there. On a whitetail deer, it's not a huge chunk of meat tucked into this little pocket, but on an animal like a moose or an elk, you could be looking at a whole steak, a whole portion for somebody. So there you go. One whitetail deer backstrap removed from the carcass. At this point, I'll just clean it up a little bit where there's some any purple stuff where the wound channel was. Feel around for bone fragments, clean all that up, and then chop it into whatever size portions I want. Normally for a whitetail doe backstrap like this, I'd probably cut off this end, like I said, for stew meat, and then the rest of it I'd probably portion into 2 bigger roasts or maybe 3 smaller roasts, depending on how many people you usually feed when you're doing that. To get your Meat Crafter by Benchmade, go to themeateater.com, benchmade.com, or your local Shield Sporting Goods.